So our best friends are stones now?
No, not all of them. Some of them are bricks.
Well, have you spoken to anyone about it?
What, like a geologist? No, this thing hates me.
Just saying that, obsessive collecting, it's rather abnormal behaviour for a child.
Oh, she's behaving abnormally, is she? I wonder why.
Oh, for Christ's sake, Abby, just get... OK, sweetie.
Everything all right?
I need a list.
A list?
Yeah, of the lies we're going to tell, in case I forget one.
And that's a clip from What We Did on Our Holiday. Delighted to say Rosamund Pike, the woman of the moment, I think you could probably say, is with us.
Well, I know. One thing I do know is that, one thing I'm learning is that, and something I've actually learnt from David Fincher is that the only obligation of a filmmaker is to sort of keep surprising the audience and keep them giving them the unexpected. So
Yes.
One thing I know is that after this little bout, I'm definitely going to put my head in the sand like one of the ostriches from What We Did on Our Holiday and lie low for a bit.
But we do have 2 Rosamund Pike movies in 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's strange. It's never happened. I mean, it's an unbelievably exciting professional moment, but I do, you do start thinking about the audience and you think, God, are they all going to get sick and tired of me after this? But
I think the answer to that is no. Because it does feel like, they are 2 completely different characters and 2
Yes.
completely... It's hard to think, really, of 2 more contrasting movies that will come out this year, really, I think.
That is true. That is probably true. Yes, Amy Dunn Gone Girl is maybe one of the least maternal women you're going to meet this year, and obviously in What We Did on Our Holiday, I'm the mother of 3. So
1 minute, in one movie you're kind of married to David Tennant, and then in the next, we walk out the movie and you're kind of married to Ben Affleck. And anyway, let's talk about Holiday first of all, because that's the movie which is coming out today. I absolutely loved the movie. I sat there with a big grin on my face all the way through. So
I'm smiling now, which is nice. That's if I hear someone experience that, then that makes me smile.
So this is written and directed by Andy Hamilton and Guy Jenkin, who delivered Outnumbered. That's what it says on the poster. So it's fair enough to put it right at the very beginning. So just explain where this movie takes you.
Well, I think the chance to work with Andy and Guy on this type of film, which is they've been under pressure for a long time to make a film of Outnumbered, and obviously they never wanted to do that because that would bring an end to the story. Inevitably, a film usually has an arc which has a finishing point, and a sitcom you don't really want to give it a finishing point. So they took all those ideas that they've sort of incubated while making that series and delivered this script, which was so original and starts off with this sort of nuclear family story of 2 parents who have the sort of madcap idea of trying to hide their imminent separation from the rest of their family and take their 3 children together in a car up to Scotland to celebrate Doug, who's played by David Tennant's father's 75th birthday. The children are under strict instruction to not mention that the parents are now living in separate houses, and you can imagine all the sort of potential for things to go wrong that emanate from there. And then, you think that's what you've got, and suddenly we get to Scotland and the story just opens up in a completely different way and becomes epic and extraordinary. And I mean, I just never read anything like it, and yet completely believable. It is all, and it's a children's movie, really. I mean, let's be honest.
Well, I was going to ask about the children because famously, Andy Hamilton and Guy Jenkin, with Outnumbered, there's a degree of improvisation, as I understand it, with the children, and they brought that application to this movie. So when you're reading the script, what does it give what the children might say, or what they're going to be told to say, or how did it look?
You've got a pretty shrewd idea. It is a carefully constructed artifact, the script. Everything is contained. There's nothing nebulous about any of the process. But the children never read the script, and we obviously do. So the children know moment to moment what the scene contains, and gradually as we got deeper into the process, they started to understand where the story was going. But they're sort of given completely free rein to goad us, provoke us, surprise us, And in the scenes with the children, our job is to respond like sort of lightning to whatever they throw up. And, you know, as with Outnumbered, Andy and Guy cast the children they can find who have the most surreal imaginations. And it's that wonderful opportunity to play with that. And they get, you know, they get their chances to do serious stuff too. But it's always a contained situation in every scene. But within that, they can be pretty free.
So how far in advance of you filming a scene would the children be told what happens and what they're expected to do?
Well, maybe just as they're brought onto set. I mean, maybe for sort of 10, 15 minutes before the scene begins. And obviously we shoot perhaps for half an hour continuously, and they'll use, you know, 30 seconds of that stuff. You know, they'll pluck out the best lines. And then the curious bit that people don't realise is that when the children can only shoot for 45 minutes at a time, so then they go off and we have to fill in around them, but usually playing the scene with Guy or Andy. So just to sort of give you a picture, Guy is very, very tall, you know, over 6'5", very thin, very tall. So our child would suddenly become that. And Andy is much smaller and heavily bearded. So I would often be talking to my bearded 4-year-old, trying not to laugh. Or in the case of Guy, I mean, obviously there was sort of no chance of talking to his face. So he'd usually have various pairs of eyes drawn on gaffer tape and stuck at various points of his T-shirt that we would be acting to. And surprisingly, this became very normal. I actually, you know, I rather missed my bearded daughter after I went off to America.
That sounds as weird as doing CGI or more weird.
I mean, it's just, you know, it is completely surreal, and yet, you know, you tune into it. I mean, it's amazing how much of making a film, you know, there's such care is taken to make the situation as believable as possible. And then often when it comes to the sort of most important shot, because of it being a close-up or whatever, you're very often not actually talking to the person you're meant to be talking to because they can't get in close enough to the camera. So that happens with, you know, grown-up movies too, that if they want your eye line very, very tight to the camera, you're actually, in the case of Gone Girl, we'd often be talking to a little rubber chicken that would be taped very close to the camera lens, which, you know, also took some getting used to.
But in terms of making stuff up and improvising around what the children are saying, you, David Tennant, Billy Connolly, Ben Miller, all had to be right on top of your game.
We did, and I mean, Ben is very, very good at it. Billy is obviously a sort of a genius at that, and you can, I think you watch the film and you can tell how much Billy's enjoying, you know, being around these children. And he's such a generous actor, Billy. You know, he's not a comedian who needs to come in and sort of steal the opportunity for a funny line. It's sort of extraordinarily generous, I think, how he approaches working with those children. You probably saw that in the film. David and I would often be in hysterics. I mean, it would be, especially during those scenes in the car, because I think everyone can identify. I mean, I don't feel that far away from remembering what it was like to be one of those children. Somehow I can sort of imagine.
This is the nightmare journey to Scotland where everything goes wrong and David Tennant thinks you can do it in a couple of hours or something.
Thinks you can
like
do it in
that.
a couple of hours will definitely be there, and you just know that, you know, you've sort of hit traffic quickly out of London, and you know that, you know, you're going to have to stop for the night. Yes. And he won't admit it.
And there's a scene which is in the trailer, so I think we can talk about it, where David Tennant falls asleep on this journey and he's driving, and we just see your daughter, who's actually holding the steering wheel.
And the sat-nav just drones on, make a U-turn, turn left, and David wakes up. But then I wake up.
And Billy Connolly's character is poorly. Not well at all, and as I understand it was only after filming that you discovered, or the crew discovered, that actually Billy has been and is still.
Yes, Billy gave us no inkling of the fact that he was feeling unwell. I mean, I'm sure it's part of the fact he probably didn't want everybody asking him how he was feeling all the time. And sometimes it's just, you know, when that is the main focus of your private life, it's nice to have a professional life where that doesn't come into it. But it's amazing. We had no idea, no.
And is it true that you found out that you got the job for Gone Girl while you were filming?
On the very last day.
Is
when
there a
we were
moment
in-
where
it's
we
always-
can see that you've got the-
No, I kept it quiet because we'd had such an extraordinary time making this film. I just didn't want anything to kind of interfere or any outside injection to come into that, very celebratory, familial thing that we developed and that was coming to a close. And of course, it's as with most of the important events of my life. That we had no phone reception. We were really in a very remote thing. So you'd see people trudging up a hill to get sort of one bar and, download a text. And that was how I got the information. So I couldn't call anybody or tell anybody. I just heard that we were getting the offer. So I did a little leap to myself in my midgenet, which I might have to explain that sentence because we were plagued by these clouds of midget. So what you end up wearing is not what you see in the film. It's a sort of Highland fencing gear where you're wrapped up with a sort of mesh balaclava, which you have to whip off just at the point that you turn and allow the midges to descend onto your face and devour you afresh.
Compare and contrast the directing styles of Andy Hamilton and Guy Jenkin with David Fincher.
Yes, that would be very interesting. In fact, it was very funny because Guy and Andy needed me to do some ADR, record some additional lines for this film while I was in the middle of doing some work in the recording studio with David Fincher. And Andy and Guy came on and they said, we need a couple of these opening lines. You've got to say Mickey, dinner, or time to go or something. And I, gave them 3 or 4. And I said, well, should I try it like this? They were like, no, that's fine. We got it. I was like, well... But I could do this. I mean, I've just come out of, the experience working with David Fincher doing sort of 80 or 90 versions of a single word.
I mean,
so
he famously
I couldn't
is-
kind of believe that Andy and Guy, I was like, are you sure? And they're like, yeah, it's fine. Really? Yeah, it's
Can't
fine.
I do it another 80 times, please?
But, so yes, it couldn't have been more different. And I'll be ever grateful that I did this film right before, I think. Because it was so freewheeling and yet you felt so contained. You just respected Andy and Guy's relentless good taste, I guess.
So it's true what people say about working with David Fincher, that you work fantastically hard and you do scene after, you do take after take of the same scene.
You do. You spend an awful... I mean, I would express it more in that you spend an awful lot of time on camera on a Fincher movie. And that is sort of what he believes. He would say, why do you fly in actors from all over the world and you get this incredibly expensive crew and you're spending maybe, $500,000 a day in total on filming a scene and you've built this set and you've got the studio and you've got, the streets locked down. Why do you then try and get people out in 20 minutes? So, he would shoot perhaps the master shot for 2 hours solidly, and of a 10-hour filming day, maybe, 6, 7, 8 would be spent actually on camera, and that is a really rare experience and incredibly rewarding. And I think if it was blind, if it was just you felt that you were in the hands of some megalomaniac who just wanted to see you sort of, do backflips like a dancing monkey, you might get irritated. But there's always a purpose. He's always shaping, honing, adding detail.
Are you still surprised he chose you?
Yes, I'll be eternally, especially as it becomes closer and closer to the release of that film. I just think it is so extraordinary that he, when you've seen all of a director's work, the fact that they've seen any of yours is actually quite a surprise, And then that he hones in and somehow knew that I had this character in me, which, for those people who've read the book, they'll know that is perhaps a disturbing thing to admit.
Did you know you had that character in you?
Yeah, I think I did. Yeah. And as an actor, you're called upon to do all sorts of things, aren't you? Sometimes you're asked for your humour, sometimes you're asked for your romantic side, and in this case, I was asked for something a lot more troubling.
Most importantly, most excitingly, Thunderbirds.
Are you a fan?
I'm a huge fan.
What was your favourite craft?
To the Thunderbird 2.
Yes,
Of course, Thunderbird 2 is the most exciting. And of course, I had the gear, and I had the outfits, and I had the cars, and I had Lady Penelope's Rolls Royce.
You did?
And you're going to be doing...
I know, I wonder if when the associated merchandise will start coming out and whether my little boy will be playing with it. I'm really excited to see it. Because I've not seen the finished... I've seen the prototypes, but, with the way this is built up, there are so many moving parts. The voices are being recorded in London, sets are being built in New Zealand, the animation is being done in Taiwan. I mean, it's all this sort of global, it's a global task force, as it should be.
But you are international pin-up Lady Penelope.
International rescue. Lady Penelope, I'm not sure she's going to look anything like me, which is probably fortunate, but she she'll sound like me in a respect, but there is a voice, of course. I definitely don't have a little lapdog.
But you do have Jeff Tracy and all the Thunderbird crew.
Oh, we
who
certainly
all
do.
think
We
you're
certainly
fantastic.
do.
Rosamund Pike, we appreciate your time with us. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Simon. It's really nice to be on this show.